Good afternoon, gentlemen. This segment is going to be on how to pour your candlestick anode bar. And in front of us we have a few items we're going to need. Now, your kit should have come with a custom mold. I have these made by a gentleman especially just for the use of the silver cell. We have a flathead screwdriver and we have a pair of channel locks. And over here we have two clamps that are going to go on our mold. And here in just a minute I'm going to show you how to assemble the mold. It's nothing more than just lining up the square blocks of graphite and putting these clamps over it and clamping it in place. Now in the back you'll see some silver cells, some silver crystals that we harvested from our cell. Now we're going to need between about 70 and 80 grams of silver to pour this candlestick anode. And this doesn't have to be silver cell crystals. This can be your cemented powder in the very beginning when you're first making these. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to cut away just for a second, and I'm going to get to where I can free both hands, and then I'm going to show you how to assemble this mold so we can pour our candlestick anode, and then we're going to go outside and we're going to pour an anode. Alright gentlemen, now we're ready to assemble our candlestick anode mold here. And you just want to take the two pieces of graphite, match them together, and kind of square them up. Take one of your clamps and slide it up over it. And on the future ones, the gentleman who makes these molds for me is going to try to put butterfly wing nuts on here because it's a lot easier to handle with just a screwdriver. For these we have to use screwdrivers plus a pair of pliers. So we're just going to stick that up on there. And we're going to take the other one and we're going to do the same thing. And what you want to do is you just want to kind of pick it up and tighten it down snugly. You don't want it real tight. And that will allow our graphite to still shift up underneath there so we can get our plates aligned. And now that we have them kind of snug there, what we'll do is we'll come back and maybe tighten them a quarter turn. Just a little bit. You don't want to put a lot of pressure on this graphite. It doesn't take a lot of pressure to hold this mold together. And we're just going to tighten them a little bit. And then if you need to adjust your graphite any, you can loosen them up just a tad bit and your graphite will move back and forth. Graphite is a great lubricant, so this stuff will slide on itself. But as you can see, I've got it pretty well squared up. That's all you're looking for, is just for everything to be lined up. And then like I said, just tighten them about a quarter turn. Just enough to put slight pressure on the graphite. You're not trying to torque these down. And then it doesn't move. And we're ready to go outside, and I'm going to show you how to melt and pour your candlestick anode. Now you will need between 70 and 80 grams of cemented silver or crystal silver to pour this anode stick. So you need to have about 70 to 80 grams of cemented or crystal silver to pour this anode stick. So we're going to cut away now and we're going to go outside and I'm going to show you how to pour this. Alright gentlemen, here we are outside. We've got our candlestick anode mold in front of us. We have our torch. And notice I have my mold inside of a catch basin right here. Now I would recommend that you find some sort of a catch basin, and I really need one larger than this. I don't melt out here a lot. I do most of my melting in the lab, but I'm doing this and outside again for demonstration purposes. Most of y'all may be doing it in your, in your spare time. Some of y'all may be doing this commercially where you have a lab at. Now over here to the left I have my melting dish, and what I have in here is I have 80 grams of silver. Now again, you could use your cemented powder or you could use the crystals. And this is a bar that I poured out of the 3-9 crystals that come out of the cell. And you can see how pretty and shiny that bar is and how pure that silver is. Well, so either which way, cemented powder or crystals. So I'm going to use this. This is an example of the bar that's going to come out of this mold. And I'm going to remelt this because I was doing something else with it. But this is actually part of the bar that will come out of your mold here. So I'm going to cut away. I'm going to go ahead and get my torch fired up and get my dish heated up here. And I'm going to show you how to warm this mold up. You don't ever want to pour hot silver into a cold mold. You will have a thermal expansion or a steam explosion. This stuff will come back out of here like a shotgun. And until you've ever had molten silver on your skin, it doesn't just come off, it burns in. So you always, again, want to observe proper eye protection and gloves. If you need some, get you some welding gloves. Me, myself, the heat really don't bother me. I use tongs. My hands are away from the heat source. So I really don't wear gloves. I have learned from past experience, if you don't have gloves on, you tend to want to reach down and grab things, and that's the wrong thing to do when you're working around hot items like this, because everything is hot. Now, after we pour our anode stick in our mold, we're going to have to let this cool for about an hour before you can handle it. This mold, this graphite, holds heat very well. It also dissipates it very well. But over the next hour, our silver will solidify and cool inside of here. It will almost do that immediately anyway. But as it cools off the rest of the temperature, it will start to shrink and it will free from our graphite mold a lot easier whenever it's cold than when it's hot. So you're going to pour this and you're going to have to wait about an hour. I'm going to take it back inside after we pour it. We're going to wait an hour. I'm going to take it inside under some better light, and I'm going to disassemble the mold to show you the anode bar that we've poured. So now I'm going to cut away and we're going to go ahead and get our torch fired up, and we're going to come back and we're going to melt some silver. Alright gentlemen, we're back and I've preheated my dish like in the previous video. You want to preheat your dish. And what I have here is a bowl that I've used for melting some cement powder. Remember, the silver that you're going to pour in here to make your anode with will be dissolved into your silver cells, so you don't have to use a clean dish for this application. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add some pieces of silver that came from my previous stick that I poured, and we're going to melt that down and use it for this experiment here. And our silver is starting to turn molten now. And you can see it gathering in the bottom of the dish. I'll pull the torch away for a minute and see if you can get a shot of it. And again, see how pretty and clear that silver is? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my candlestick bar in there. I'm going to let that cool for just a minute so I don't stick it down in that molten silver. And then I'm just going to slide it in there and start to heat it. And it'll start to dissolve in just a second. you can see our silver starting to pool in the bottom. Now remember, this is between 70 and 80 grams. I'm using 80 grams for this demonstration. And look how pretty and clean that silver is. That's what you want to see. And now what we want to do, now that we've got our silver hot and molten, we want to come over here and we want to heat this mold up. And we just want to take our torch and just run it up and down the sides. And kind of warm it up, and let's not forget about our silver over here. We want to keep it in a good molten state. And you don't have to spend a lot of time on this graphite mold heating it up. It conducts heat very well. We're trying to drive some residual moisture out of it first off, and then we're trying to heat it up so our silver has time to make to the bottom before it solidifies. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take our dish and we're going to position it over the top of the mold, and we're going to bounce the flame off of our dish down into our mold, heating our graphite. We want to bounce it off the lip while we keep our silver molten back here. Plus, we're preheating our graphite. You just want to balance it on that lip. And after about 10 to 15 seconds of good heating, you just want to tip it up and pour it in there. And keep a little heat on top for just a second. Now, that's how we pour our candlestick anode. And what we're going to do is we're going to let this cool for about an hour, and then we're going to come back and we're going to disassemble it, and we're going to take a look at what our anode stick looks like. So, I'll see you gentlemen in just a few minutes. Alright gentlemen, we're back inside after having poured our candlestick anode and given our mold about an hour to cool so we can handle it real good. Now, when we open this up, there's several possibilities to what we could find inside. We could find a perfect specimen of what we're looking for with a rod with a little spur on the end of it. Or we could find a half-poured rod. And the reason that is either you didn't heat your graphite and keep it warm enough, or you didn't have the silver hot enough in the dish. It can be one of two, or it can be both. So whenever you're up here with your dish and you're playing the flame off that lip, make sure that it bounces in here to heat this graphite. Graphite is a great conductor of heat. So if you heat it up here, that heat is going to be transferred through the whole body. It's not going to be like heating a piece of aluminum or a piece of steel. This graphite conducts heat well. So hold your dish up here, make sure that you get your silver good and molten. And the more molten you get silver or gold, the more it tends to beat up on the surface of the dish like water does. So you want to play your flame on your silver, bouncing it over the lip and getting your mold all at the same time. And after about 30 seconds of that, you just want to tip it all up. Don't worry about overfilling this. This thing has a cavity that'll hold enough that you can't overfill it if you've used between 70 and 80 grams. So just tip it up, pour it quick, and hold your torch on it for about 15 seconds. Take the torch away, then allow it to cool for 1 hour. Now we're going to break this mold open and see how our candlestick anode come out. We're just going to loosen it up, and the clamp should slide right off. Same way on this bottom section right here. We're just going to loosen it up, and the clamp slides off, and we're going to see what we have inside of our mold here. And voila, we have the perfect specimen of what we're looking for. This is the candlestick anode that you're going to use in your silver cell for making contact with your silver shot. This is what your positive lead will go to. Now, we used a little bit more than we needed in this mold. And sometimes these things can be temperamental. You really don't want to force it. If you'll flip it over sometimes and just barely tap the mold, it'll fall right out. Just like that. And this spur is on here for a reason. You're going to want to stick this down in your basket and fill in around it with shot and attach your positive end right here. All this will dissolve into your electrolyte solution and be precipitated back out of your cell. Now, I use some of the crystals from the cell to make this with. That's why it looks good. But like I said, you could also use your cemented silver. So don't break that off. There's no reason to. You could stick this right into the cell, clip your anode lead up here and pour your shot around this, and it will work for many baskets full of shot. And whenever you get ready to make another one, you just do the mold the same way and pour you another one. And let me show you just how soft this silver is. Notice how easy I bent that? Pure silver is really, really soft. I mean soft like lead soft, and now I've warped it. But it's just an anode bar, so it really doesn't matter. But it is a real soft metal at this point because it's so pure. So, gentlemen, I guess we finally reached the end of our anode process. So we'll go inside and we'll get our silver basket started up and start making some silver crystals.